The benefits of local and sustainable farming for local communities involve not only getting the fresh food without spending a lot of oil and finite resources to get it, but the diversity of the food, keeping foods in our neighborhood. You know, you talk about national security, and I don't think that you can really be secure unless you have access to a food supply that's close to you, people who know how to grow it, people who know how to get it to you, and perhaps, you know, even how to cook it. That might be a good thing to have too.
A very popular and very, I guess, intense way to get involved with a farm and to learn about exactly where your food's coming from is a movement that started about 15 years ago on the East Coast, and it has since come to the Midwest, and it's really taken off in the Midwest, and that's called Community Supported Agriculture, or CSA. And that's a system where consumers will actually sign a subscription. They'll pay before the growing season to join a farm, and they become, in a sense, members of that farm. And they then, in return, during the growing season, get a delivery every week of fresh organic vegetables.
My name is Al Jabs, Farmer Al. Most people call me that. I started the CSA last year, and it's been a work in progress for about 7 years. And last year was the first time that we were able to get people to commit to a CSA in the Brainerd area. Our first week we started with 7 members, and I was happy because it was a start. And by the second week, after we had our first week of delivery baskets, we jumped up to 15. And by the third week, we were at 32. So the word of mouth spread quite rapidly in the area. And at 32, I closed the membership because I wasn't planning for anything that large for that year. And then now in our second year, we're up to a little better than 110 members, and we closed membership off this year, and we have a waiting list now for next year.
Well, this is our first year with the Community Supported Ag, and it's been great. We were able to pick up every week organic, fresh vegetables rather than fighting the crowds at the grocery store. So we really love it. Our daughter here, she'll be healthier in the future because of it, and we teach her good, healthy eating habits.
The values of organic farmers primarily are about a humbleness and a knowledge about our relationship with the land, how humans fit in the mix of things. We are part of an ecosystem, and organic farmers, which comprise about 40% of the membership of sustainable farmers, tend to really understand those systems better than anyone else because they live them, they love them, they walk them, their life depends on them. We have much to learn about how to do agriculture in a sustainable system.
A lot of what we're doing here, and the focus of a lot of our pasture management, is to build organic matter in the soil. These are very light, very sandy soils here. For many years, this ground was row crop farmed. The organic matter is all but gone here. But organic matter is something that through rotational grazing, through a process what we call outwintering, by wintering some of the dry cows and heifers out on pasture and moving the hay around, they can help distribute manure and organic matter for us. And then by composting our bedding pack and getting that back out on the ground, those techniques can go a long way to improving organic matter and soil fertility here. And if you have healthy soil, you have healthy plants. If you have healthy plants, you have healthy animals. And if you have healthy animals, you have healthy people. It's all connected and tied together. And our focus here is on the soil because that's the building, the foundational building block to a healthy system. Type farming system is it can be so family friendly. you're not so dependent upon heavy machinery and mechanization, that you can incorporate family members even at a fairly young age to participate. This is our laying flock, and using a sustainable practice called stacking, we can add complementary species such as laying hens to produce more products per acre than just, for example, running cattle alone.
My name is Jim Fruth, and I run the farm here at Brambleberry Farm in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. The word sustainable is extremely nebulous depending upon who you're talking to. And it's probably nebulous to me too, but if I had to say sustainable, I would say that it's been functioning and continues to function with not a lot of real intensive input.
Hi, I'm Chuck Knierim, currently the chairman of the board of directors for Sustainable Farming Association State. And this is my wife, Karen.
Yes, I'm Karen Knierim, and our company is Wild Rose Farm, and we are a tree farm, and we also have an organic cotton clothing business.
Well, for us, it's a little more complicated than some people's, I suppose. It's like this building, it's something that we actually kind of consider we grew, and we replanted. So our buildings on our farm are sustainable because we can grow a new one, so to speak. And as far as other things we produce, we feel being sustainable means that we can go on and on without a lot of inputs from the outside world, so to speak. And it applies to many things for us. For instance, heating. We grow our heat here. We have a central wood-fired boiler, and it heats our home, office, warehouse, and this building too. We're adding a solar component to it, so we just keep working towards that sustainability being not much of a burden on our environment. In the amount of time that we've been farming sustainably and organic, it's been quite encouraging to see the changes we've brought about in the environment of our farm and the health of the soil and what we plant. Seeing the health improvements in our farm has reaffirmed our belief in the you shall reap what you sow. It's a simple biblical phrase, and I think organic agriculture reaffirms and supports that.
Farming philosophy. Work with nature. Try not to work against it. Try not to, smash and conquer the natural world. Try to work with and appreciate it. For me to be out in the field and watching things grow and everything that's going on is very rewarding. Very refreshing. I enjoy that a lot. And with most operations on the machines here, it takes about 10 hours to go over the farm. 8 to 10 hours with the equipment that I have, and so that makes a long day or 2 days, depending on the interruptions and breakdowns and whatnot. And so I always kind of like that. You know, it's the same length of time it would take to drive from here to Chicago, but I do it in just, you know, back and forth on the rows, and it's amazing. Over the years, you learn every piece of the ground, and I can point to any part of the fields, and I can tell you, you know, that's a good piece of ground, or that's not a very fertile spot, and this spot's weedy, and you learn all that, and you learn where the rocks are, and somehow it's very rewarding, and it's almost, in some ways, it's almost like a meditation to keep going over the ground and just, you know, observing and looking. And of course, there's a practical side. You've got a job to get done, and you've got weather pressures, schedule pressures, you've got family things and a job that has to be attended to, so it's kind of squeezed in sometimes. And at times it gets really hectic, especially if you take a couple of days off work and the weather's nice and the machine breaks down, and then by the time you get the machine fixed, you have to go back to work, and then the weather goes against you. And we've had some real adventures here. Selling as organic has gotten a lot better in recent years. See, my crop last year I had barley, and it went to an organic dairy in central Minnesota. This rye crop that's about to be harvested, I'm not sure where I'm going to sell that. The demand for that isn't real great. I'll probably go for seed for a cover crop. The straw will go to an organic dairy farm. And so, variety of places. I've sold now with the organic livestock becoming online. It's a lot easier to sell directly to another farmer with what I do. In the early years that I was doing organic farming, it was tough to find markets. I actually had an organic soybean crop one year that I had to sell conventional because I couldn't find an organic buyer back in the early 90s or mid 90s. And so it's gotten, you know, a lot better. And I'm pretty comfortable with the marketing side of it. It's you know, there's 10 times the market there was in the early 90s, and so that part's pretty good. I have no complaints really about that. I mean, you have to pay attention, and it's never perfect, but I really can't complain.
I'm Dan Middendorf. We're sitting here on our deck on a nice sunny, muggy morning with my wife Rosie and daughter Katie and son Joel. And the place we're on is called Midman Dairy. We've been here for 6 years. We came from the Sauk Center area. We came here because to give the kids a chance to farm, and there wasn't the opportunities down there. We run 180 cows on irrigated pasture in the summertime, outdoor housing in the wintertime. We farm about 600 acres this year, 700? We don't count, doesn't matter. Almost all of it in grass. We've got 50 acres of corn this year for silage and 30 acres of sorghum Sudan. Everything else is in permanent sod. Most of we hay a couple hundred acres, the rest is in pasture and graze.
So the health of the cows has amazed us, and we had them in confinement at the other farm. We were paying the vet bill and the feed bill. They were making more money than we were, the feed companies. I said, here, if we have the vet out at the farm 2 times, 3 times a year, and then it's usually for a calving problem, our cows are healthy. They don't have the joint problems. They don't have the feet problems. They may get foot rot from the wet when we do get rain and we have some water, but the cows are healthy. We don't have to worry about them calving. That worry is gone. And the vet is our friend. He's not our enemy that comes on the farm because we needed him again. He's our friend. And I said, the health of the cows is just amazing. And the calves. The calves are raised on our lawn, or they're raised in hutches. And I says, they're just healthy. because the fresh air, the sun, God created it that way, and that's where they're supposed to be.
You know, you ask how we made this journey. Rosie had a pile of health problems.
We were losing cows.
We had cows dying. I have a lot of mold allergies. In a confinement barn, I don't survive. I can't go in a silo. The molds in there, I get very sick. So we had to change our system on. We went to making all round bale silage as opposed to making haylage. If we make corn silage, it goes out on piles. We got the cows out of the barn. We found if I'm healthier out of the barn, the cows are too. The cows have done very well. We had run young stock outside since 1989. They haven't had any buildings since 1989 for the most part. Once they come out of calf hutches, they're outdoors. The cows simply don't expect to be inside anymore. And all of these are we started down there in a high herd average, very hard pushed herd, a lot of health problems. And we started grazing and we changed our focus. Our herd average went from nearly 25,000 pounds to 12,000 pounds. But our cow numbers came up and we just started focusing on very, very cheap milk as opposed to a lot of milk. Now, our feed cost per hundredweight normally for the year hovers right around $3. And that's about anywhere from half to 2/3 of normal. And we don't need a lot of milk per cow. We need a few more cows. But we're in a system where we have no stalls. We have some buildings for winter shelter, almost never use them. We said our winter housing is a pretty big shed. It's outside and has a blue roof.
The science behind grass-fed is that they're showing that you have a CLA content, which is a cancer-fighting agent. You can also get it. It's very beneficial through grass-fed dairy animals. It has a different fat structure in the meat that is not so. They say it's not as harmful. I know there's two. I always look at both sides of the science, and I think nature intended us to feed beef on grass.
Animals do better on when they're fed and kept as Mother Nature intended to them. Seems that cattle, cows, especially dairy, do not live as long a life if they are put on this high density feed. Cows that on pasture and seem to just do a lot better. It's a burnout for them. Like if we were expected to work 10 hours a day and instead we had to work out 18 hours a day, we would not last as long as a cow that's forced to eat high density feed when Mother Nature did not intend for her to do that. And we have better quality milk and better quality animal.
Here in where we're at here in the Midwest, we're very fortunate in that we have farms that are still within a drivable distance, not even a day's distance, but much less, an hour or less in some cases, to many areas, including here in the Twin Cities, but also in the regional areas. And I think probably one of the main ways, easiest ways that a consumer could get connected with a farmer is through farmers markets. It's one of the fastest growing sectors of the food market right now. I just read a statistic that in Iowa, just south of us here, there are now more farmers markets in that state than anywhere in the country. We're certainly seeing it here in Minnesota. Working with the Land Stewardship Project, we get calls every year from people who are organizing a new farmers market saying, we need farmers, and there's actually a shortage of farmers to produce for these farmers markets. Well, I think in central Minnesota we're seeing kind of a microcosm of some really exciting changes going on as far as sustainable agriculture and the whole direct marketing thing. For example, the whole farm co-op in Long Prairie.
Well, the co-op was founded to try to find an alternate market outlet for the kind of foodstuffs that we raise in this case. The kind of foodstuffs we raise are sustainably raised, and there was no way that this foodstuff could be kept separate from the regular commodity market products. And the only way we saw as a means to do that was to be the producer and marketer of our foodstuff directly to the customer. But it does go beyond that in terms of sustainability, because we feel by being able to market our materials and so on in this area that we will return more of the money that is paid by the customer for the foodstuff back to our community in this case. So it not only will sustain the farm and the family, but it will sustain the community and all the agencies that are involved with the community, such as schools and churches and those kind of operations. The customer does feel closer to the food supply, and we try to facilitate that on our internet or our website, I guess in this particular case, because we do have producer profiles there. We do have an identity number for each producer in this particular case, which is part of the invoice. Once the number is put on the invoice for the food product, the first three numbers constitute and identify the producer in this case. So the consumer then can look that up and find out who the producers are.
The Crowing is one of many co-ops in Minnesota. A lot of them got started in the late 70s and the 80s, either as buying clubs or cooperative grocery stores. The first round of alternatives selling local and natural produce to people who were concerned at the time about the increasing pesticide use and of conventional food systems. But the food co-op was really starting to struggle, because with the growth in organics, all the chain stores are starting to carry organics, and we were still very interested in supporting local and natural food and holistic health here at the food co-op. And we thought, you know, organic's not synonymous with sustainable, because there's no reason why we need to be getting organic tomatoes from the Netherlands. Since we live in a farm state, we should be able to have more local produce here. A lot of food that's not labeled organic is grown naturally without chemicals. If you know where your food's coming from, then it doesn't need to have that organic label.
The problems facing farmers probably go back almost to the time when the plow broke the prairie. Nature is only one of the elements that farmers need to work within. And sometimes we get the mistaken idea that we are going to conquer or prevail or tame nature to work for us. So if we go back to the time of the settlement in Minnesota, you know, there were pests, there was drought, all of those natural sorts of things. And also, you know, the mechanization of agriculture started at that time. It's continued pretty much unimpeded and now accelerated, and what it has led to is high production of a very few amount of commodity crops. It's also causing depopulation of the rural landscape and is really not paying enough attention to the environment. We need to rethink how we do agriculture, how much fossil fuel is used in agriculture, what water quality results from different agricultural use, and how people relate to the soil and the land. I think it's important for all of us to come back to that the soil is where our life comes from, and that we must learn more about our natural systems, how to work within those systems, how to work within the limitations and parameters of nature, and to be concerned about future generations. Our decisions now in agriculture influence future generations, and being a farmer, I'm particularly partial and wanting to draw attention to that we need people on the land that know what to do with the land, not always plow the land, but permaculturalists, sustainable farmers. We need to keep people who know how to produce food close to us and in our communities. It's a bad idea to depend on energy resources offshore. I think it's an even worse idea to depend on food sources offshore.